What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 329 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have John Karpov. He's the president of Action Home Services here in Toronto. Every time I go to in-person events, I see the orange shirts of Action Home Services throughout that event. And I've been wanting to ask John if he'd be willing to come on the podcast. And graciously, he gave me his time here to get into Action Home Services, how they have scaled, his mission of growing people, which brings us to the topic of all the events that he has his employees go to and that investment that goes into that, both time and money. And not just the investment into that, but also marketing and their budget for marketing per month. You'll want to listen to this entire episode here. But before we get into it, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Patio SEO has hopped on board as a sponsor, and they are a leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed. We've had him on the podcast a couple of times, some of our more popular episodes, and he owns hardscape businesses across the country. And now you can have access to the same in-house marketing team that he has access to at patioseo.com. So if you're looking for a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, check them out at patioseo.com. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIPHTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined by John Karpov. He is the president of Action Home Services, Toronto's outdoor experts. And I've been going to some hardscape landscape events, and I see the wall of orange that Action Home Services has at all these events. And I needed to have John on the show here. So, John, thank you first and foremost for your time and actually coming on the show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
John, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you yourself. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background as to how you got started in the industry? What brought you to starting Action Home Services?
Sure. I've started a company over 10 years ago. We've started off from a need, I would say, financial needs. So I moved to Canada when I was 17. At around 18 years old, my financial situation changed. So I started to work in a driveway sealing company, trying to keep up with bills to pay for my tuition and living expenses. And then from this driveway sealing company, they couldn't keep up with the sales I was doing, so I ended up opening my own driveway sealing company. And then slowly we were transitioning, doing more and more landscaping projects. So about 8 years ago, we fully transitioned and being a landscape company. We have a division of the company who still does driveway sealing, which is a very good friend of mine. So he fully manages this, and I'm mostly doing hardscape, landscape, pools, and everything related there.
Awesome. So going back to when you started to take on like landscaping projects, now you guys are doing pools and paving, a whole wide range of services. How did you start taking on those services? Was it you yourself learning and you yourself doing it in the field with your crew members, or was this you going out and getting people that already knew how to do it, either subcontracting or bringing them into the business to actually be employees in the business?
Great question. So it was actually a combination of a lot of things. So at the very beginning, as we were starting off, I had a friend who had a landscaping company. So they had experience doing landscaping. So on every single time when clients would ask, hey, can you guys do a sodding job or a planting job, a small paver job? I would call him. He would join me. We would do the project together. Would split all the profits. So he knew all the technical background. He knew how to install it, and we've done a few of those jobs. And then from there, we ended up doing a little bit larger jobs. The installation of the pavers is very much similar, regardless of the square footage you're doing. So then eventually we ended up hiring our first foreman, and he was extremely experienced. So he's been in the industry for, I'd say, 35 or 40 years. So the guy knew everything from carpentry to any type of masonry to hardscaping to any type of landscaping. So he started to actually be the main foreman on the project, and I was mainly helping him, dealing all the doing all the paperwork, doing the sales, dealing with logistics. And from there, we just continued growing. So we added another foreman, and mostly as we were hiring some of those guys, some people came with inexperience, some people came with a lot of experience, and yeah, from there, it just continued to scale and more and more.
Definitely. And I do want to get into scaling, but how did you actually attract, especially those first few experienced employees into the business? What was it about you yourself or Action Home Services that they were willing to come on board and be that experienced person? Because that can be really difficult to attract those employees, those experienced employees in the beginning.
It was really straightforward. I posted an ads on all possible platforms, pay for those ads. I did a bunch of interviews, so it wasn't like all of a sudden in 1 hour we got the really experienced person. It was a lot of trial and error. So we got one guy. He was started to do the work because I already had full understanding how to do it. I could see if the guy really knows what he's doing or not. And then if it didn't work out, we tried the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And all it went all the way till a point that we found one, and then once we found one, I continued doing the same. And it's a story of my life. We never stop hiring, so I just never stop hiring. Whether it's salespeople, design, project management, project coordinators, office foremen, we always hire. And very often we get applications in the times when we actually don't need a person. Like we essentially have the positions open, which we don't even need to fulfill. But you never know what's going to happen with the pipeline, what's going to happen with the projects. But most importantly, if this great candidate becomes available, if something didn't work out at a previous company, or they could possibly just relocate it to Toronto, it may be a perfect fit for us. And that's why we're always hiring. So that's essentially the mantra I was living for years. We're always hiring foremen, and as the company was scaling, we just genuinely needed foremen all the time. So we're just always hiring them.
And with that, how do you kind of judge whether or not that is a person that you would want to hire? Say like they're going to fit into the culture of Action Home Services and they're going to be somebody that you'll want to actually hire and keep on there because that can also be difficult.
Great question. Now I could say it's a gut feeling. And, this gut feeling, you can also say it's entrepreneurial intuition. Once you're doing certain things over and over, you get really good at it. By now, I've probably hired over 1,000 people, maybe a couple thousand, and fired a lot of people as well. So once you have this amount of experience, it gets really easy to understand it. But at the very beginning, it was a lot of trial and error. So you try, he seems to be like a really nice guy. He then doesn't show up to the project, and then you're stuck. And it's been a challenge. Very often we would again hire a person and we're gonna add him to a crew where we don't need him. So let's say if I'm hiring a foreman for a carpentry, I'm gonna add him on to an existing project where we don't need a person. So let's say it's a 3-man job and we're gonna put a fourth guy there. And yes, it's actually not increasing efficiency, and yes, it's costing us money. But if he's not gonna show up, it's not gonna screw up my schedule. And if he will show up and if he's great, my guys would usually say in a first day right away, and yeah, the guy's great. And then immediately there, I'm going to see, okay, well, where actually can I put him to make sure there's going to be efficiency? And that's essentially the way we've done it. And then once we so our foremen, we never leave them on sites alone anymore. We've had this experience in the past. And then a guy who said he has a lot of experience could have not been the case. So then you end up with a project where there's not that much things getting done in this specific day. So we usually add them on, and they would usually shadow our guys from anywhere from 2 weeks to sometimes 3 months.
Especially you mentioned hiring when you don't necessarily need the person right now, or like growing into having them on as the team. How did you get comfortable with that sort of risk? Was that something that was just you had and you knew when you were starting to grow Action Home Services that this was the route that you needed to go, or did this develop over time, this tolerance for that risk?
I think in general I have extremely high risk tolerance, but at the beginning it was, yeah, just me taking on a lot of risks. It's essentially hiring somebody you don't need, hoping I'm gonna find the job. And every single time I did it, somehow we were able to find the projects. It usually works. The way it works is like you don't have a foreman who can do the job, or you don't have a designer or project manager, and then you don't have those projects. The moment you hire them, all of a sudden, like there's poof, the work appears. So it's just been, I don't know if I was just very lucky for so many years, or things just start aligning and you're starting to take on more work because you're capable of doing it. But yeah, throughout the journey, things were somehow aligning.
So how big is Action Home Services today in terms of employees? How many employees do you currently have, approximately?
Not big enough. We've got a combination of full-time employees, which are mainly our project managers, designers, our office staff. We have a lot of trades which we use on a subcontracting model, so they are subcontractors, which some of them work exclusively with us, some of them are not. So it's quite a bit of a mix. We are one of the larger size organizations, so we've got over 100 guys in total once you combine all the subs and everybody. The exact number I don't even know, and I mean it's changing like really fast.
And I asked that because what about you yourself in a day-to-day situation? What are you doing day to day? What are your roles and responsibilities now?
I call myself a senior janitor, so I clean up all the senior shit.
Got it.
Uh, Right now, I'm kind of a bridge between a lot of departments. On our size, we actually have full size departments. So we have a full size sales department, design department, project management department, office, finance department. So my main direct reports are head of the departments. So I spend time with them, making sure the department runs correctly. I fill in a lot of gaps. As we're scaling, there's a new position which needs to be done, but we may not need a full-time person there. I still do a little bit of business development, very little amount of sale, and a lot of coaching for new people who come in, a lot of training for senior roles as well, for everything from technical to leadership trainings. And yeah, essentially like fulfilling a lot of gaps within the organization.
What does training look like for a sort of leadership role that somebody's coming into Action Home Services? Do you have like a documented, like, this is what we do, this is what we need you to go through, this is what we need you to read, this is
Yeah.
a course? What does that look like? And you sitting down with them as well?
Broken down by department. So we have number one, an onboarding process. So once you join Action of Services, you go through an onboarding. There is a general company onboarding process, which is just there's X amount of steps. We're actually in a process of updating. Now it probably it's about 50 steps you have to go through. Everything from you signing NDA contract, employment agreements, you reading through our policy books, you going through mandatory trainings for safety. To taking pictures, creating accounts in different softwares, getting in touch with all the heads of departments, to then a department specific training. So we have a specific department for sales, specific training for design, project management, project coordinator. Foremen have their own training as well. So once you're joining one of the crews, they're on their own. Where we have a lot of trainings is primarily the management positions. So those like are really heavily developed. Even though we can hire the guy or a girl with a lot of experience, they may not fully understand the specifics of the company. So, and I mean, it's, you mentioned books. So yes, there is X amount of books which we expect everybody to read the moment they join a company. That's just to make sure that their core values are aligning with ours. And this way it allows us to stay on the same page. We don't force them to take specific online trainings. However, there's specific online trainings they're taking throughout their first couple of years of employment. but it's not like a mandatory course which you need to take at the very beginning. For foremen, we do. It's mostly related to safety. Same thing for project managers. And we are, again, because we're in the scaling stage right now, we're adding more and more of those onboarding plans to make sure we're in compliance with a lot of government regulations, but at the same time to make sure that guys fully understand our internal processes.
You did mention softwares, plural there, with
Yeah.
how many you have. Can you run through the different softwares that you use at Action Home Services?
Sure. We've got Dropbox, Google Drive, storage for files. Gmail is our main email communication. WhatsApp is our main hub of all the information for internal and external communication with clients. We go through SumoQuote, which is our estimating software. We use Element for snow estimating. We use Monday.com for our CRM, and it's a pretty heavily built up for us, so it's more of an ERP system. QuickBooks is our main financial hub. We use Dex for automation of receipts. We use Approval Max for automation of a workflow of invoice approvals. Company Camp for company file storage of designs, permits, as well as pictures. So this is essentially the main amount of softwares which are used specifically at the main level of the business, but there's a lot of department specifics. Like we've got things which we use for GPS tracking. We've got certain equipment which we use for an inventory system of the yards, and overall, we have a lot of automations. So we use AI as much as we possibly can on all levels. So those automations are really much department specific.
Thank you for running through that. That's quite a bit that you have got going on there. And I want to ask you about, so just going off the topic of training and onboarding and all that, you also have ongoing education, sending your employees to all these different events. That adds up and is quite the expense that you rack up there for your employees to go to those events, not just the entry fee but also the time that you spend for them to go there. What is the purpose of sending your employees to these different events? I'll start there. Like, what is your mindset around sending your employees and having that expense to send them to these different events?
I don't think it's an expense. I think it's an investment. So you're spending, well, if we're spending the money wisely right now, it's actually going to have a higher return. So growing people is my personal mission, but at the same time, that's how I was scaling the company for all of these years. You can't expect people to know something which you've never taught them unless you're hiring somebody with a lot of experience, which in our case, it's very hard to find somebody in the industry with level of expectations which I have, but it's much easier for me to train them. And bringing them to this events is just a way of us growing people within the organization. Also, once we have people who are, as trained as we possibly can, it just makes the overall process much smoother.
So what I've noticed from your employees and you yourself at these events is that they're very engaged. They're the ones that ask the most amount of questions, and that takes a lot for employees to be the ones speaking up and asking those questions. So it shows me a lot of the culture that you have at Action Home Services there. How do you decide which people are going to the events? Like, what are their roles in the business that that they need to go to a certain event?
If it would be up to me, I would make everybody go there. But a lot of our guys want themselves as a volunteer. If it would be up to me, I would literally bring 100 people in every single one.
Got it.
I would make the full. Well, I'm a big believer in learning. I don't specifically believe in the high school education or education in general, which is we get in colleges and universities. However, learning from your peers in the industry or learning on a very specific seminars or courses could be very beneficial. So I've learned a lot going on these conferences myself, and I've been doing it for many years. So to me, it's been a pleasure of me going on those. I get to meet a lot of people, ask questions, and there's this phrase which I've heard from somebody is there are things you don't know, and there is things which you don't know you don't know, right? So I'm always in this learning curve, always trying to get better and always trying to improve myself. And this is what I try to inspire with people around me is them having the same mentality and mindset. so that they're eager to absorb new information and get better every day.
How do you choose which events to go to? Because with an overabundance of different events that go on throughout the year, both within our industry and outside of our industry as well, how do you choose which ones are the ones that you want to attend?
Very good question. We actually go on a lot,
Mhm.
and I have this saying that by now, out of a 2 or 3 day event, all I'm looking to learn is one thing. So I'm not trying to get like 3 days worth of information. It's usually literally one or two things which I can improve in a business. It's actually much easier to get something really beneficial at the very beginning because if your business has a lot of inefficiencies, it's very easy to just learn a bunch of things which you can implement immediately. On a business of our scales of us trying to improve things for so many years, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. So we go on as much as we possibly can, as long as the dates are aligning. This year I put a limit for myself, no more than 2 events per month. Uh, Last year I was going about 3 to 4, which puts a lot of pressure because then I still have to catch up with work. And depending on the person and their role in the organization, I would see if it's the best fit for them. So I'm not going to bring a finance person on a project manager course. But at the same time, I'm going to bring every single foreman on project manager course because they are a mini project managers of the job. At the same time, I would not bring a salesperson on a finance course, even though we'll give them, a general understanding of how the business finances works. So, yeah, but I would say we do quite a bit. So essentially everything what aligns with our calendar and schedule, we would go. And a lot of times we have to say no just because there's another event pre-booked. So we have certain ones which we believe would be the best for us, and everything else is like filler in between.
This is a hypothetical here, but let's say something happened, a massive downturn in the economy where you had to cut something in your business, an expense, an investment, you had to cut something. How high would going to the events rank in that kind of decision of cutting an expense? Would that be the first thing to go, or would you delay that as much as possible to have to cut going to events?
I probably wouldn't cut at all. Like I would cut zero. I'll figure out a way to doing them online instead of in person. So a lot of events. I mean, in Canada, there's actually not that many events which we can attend. We go on a lot of events in US, and a lot of them are on a bigger scale, so they have an ability of doing them online. So we actually don't do it online. We ended up flying there, so our expenses on the events is way higher. It's a flying and paying for accommodation is the higher, it's a really high cost. So for me, I would cut off the accommodation and the flights, do the events online, rent a co-working space here, and just do it together. Because the reality is when the challenges are, when the times are hard, it's a perfect time to improve, perfect time to get better.
What about follow-up after an event? Do you have a meeting planned immediately after an event to like go through what everybody took away from it, or how does that work?
Yeah, very good question. We usually do. So we usually, if let's say we're flying away, we're gonna stay in the same hall room, ballroom, or whatever the venue is, literally in the same room. We're gonna order Uber Eats, eat there as a team, and discuss all the takeaways. That's for events which are happening outside of Ontario. If something is happening in Ontario and we're driving there, which means we're going back home, then we ask everybody to write down the takeaways, and then we discuss them internally as well.
And how often, or how often do you implement something that you took away from an event? Say like a one-day event. How often do you implement something that you took away from that event, and how quickly will you implement it in your business?
So how quickly would depend on level of the actual improvement. Typically, the way we try to do things is we pick anywhere between 3 to 5 improvements per quarter per department. So each department has X amount of things they need to improve. Now those are for large scale improvements. So large scale for us is something that's going to take several months to fully accomplish, not removing their day-to-day job. Something small, like I don't know if we're talking about I mean, it will be hard to, let's say if we need to order a flyer, that's not going to take us 3 months. That's something we're going to accomplish within a week. So we're going to take it on and we'll get it done right away. So there's essentially two things I'll do is something small and we can do it right away. Never wait. We'll do it right away. We'll just get it accomplished as soon as possible. Have a check mark, move on. If it's a large scale improvement, then we'll never start it this quarter. We're going to have to wait till all the improvements for this quarter are done. And it will go on the list of improvements for the following quarter, depending on how important this is. So we have them and they start piling up and we look at the list and we're like, well, out of 30, which we have here, what are the top 3 to 5, the most important ones? And we pick them. And certain ones, as the time goes by, they're no longer applicable. So it may seem to be as a brilliant idea now. Within a year, we're like, wasn't actually a good idea at all. So yeah, that's how we prioritize.
And how do you make those decisions? Are your department heads coming up to you in like a leadership meeting and presenting these things?
Yep.
And do you sometimes disagree on something in terms of, no, we don't need to do that? And then how do you resolve that where a department head might want something implemented, but you disagree? Do you just let them do it and see if it works or not? How would you go about that?
I mean, you nailed it. Yes, the head of departments are the ones responsible for bringing in the ideas. It's not me. If it would be me, it would have been too many for them to handle. Well, on the other hand, we actually have a couple guys who are coming up with too many. And in that case, I have to say no. And I'm not saying no because it's a bad idea. I'm saying no, you just would not be able to fulfill. There's no reason to start the improvement to actually not get it done within a quarter. And then it's just us taking on too much on our plate. So prioritization with improvements is really crucial, is making sure is whatever you start actually gets done. Otherwise, there's no need to even start it. Just push it off till next quarter and don't worry about it now.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. We want to take a break from today's episode to talk about marketing. Are you looking to take your hardscape business to the next level? Well, this is brought to you by Patio SEO, the leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed, who owns multiple hardscape businesses across the country. And here's the kicker. You're not just getting access to any team. You're getting access to the very team that helped grow James's own companies, plus hundreds of others in the industry. Whether you need a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, Patio SEO has got you covered. They've been in your shoes and know exactly what works. We've had James Reed on the podcast a couple of times, and they're some of our more popular episodes, talking about branding, talking about how he's built companies across the country. And with that, he needs lots of leads, which means he's had to perfect his branding and marketing. And now you can have access to that same in-house team that he has access to for his own hardscape company. So if you're ready to build your brand and see some serious growth, check them out at patioseo.com. That's patioseo.com, or follow James on Instagram at road to 100ms. That's road to 100ms. Let's get your business the attention it deserves. Now back to the episode. Relative to other landscape companies, Action Home Services has scaled pretty quickly. I just want to ask you, have you experienced any challenges in that scaling process? Either personally or just as a business? Like what have been some hurdles that you've had to overcome as you've scaled to where you are today?
Yeah, we had challenges. There's not even a single day when I don't have problems. And once we Once you get to a certain size, there's so many problems that you start picking and choosing which ones you're fixing. So there's 100 of them on my list, and I know there's no way I'm going to be able to fix all 100. So I pick, X amount which I can fix, which I believe are the most important ones. And the other ones, they're still hurting, and I know they exist, but it's just impossible to fix it all, right? And a lot of times people get overwhelmed with, having so many things which are going wrong, but it's essentially unavoidable to scale the company at a fast pace and not make mistakes. So to me, just after doing it for so many years, I became a part of my culture that, okay, well, things will go wrong and I have to accept it and then we'll have to fix it. And that's just the way the things are. But yeah, things break down in our company every single day. Like we're trying to build a plane as we're flying a plane and you're trying to fix it. And it's hard. It's challenging.
How often do you delegate those challenges to, say, department heads or other people in the business to fix, whereas take them on yourself? Where is that sort of line where you decide, you know what, this is something that somebody else can do, whereas this is something that you yourself need to take care of with those challenges? I asked that just because, like, me myself, I'm bad at delegation, so I would just want to take on everything. So, like, where's your line in terms of that delegation?
The answer is within the question itself. If somebody can solve the problem, I'm not going to be involved. If they can't solve it for whatever reason, they don't have enough experience, expertise, may not have enough time, I'm going to figure it out. But if they can, I'll not even try to do it myself. There's thousands of them happening on a daily basis. So for me, I would love to handle them all myself, right? Like most of the business owner, we're control freaks and we're trying to get everything done ourselves. We're trying to first figure out how to do it ourselves before we're going to give it to someone else. It's not a scalable approach. So on a lot of operations, I'm not even involved in, not even building it, like not involved in implementation, not involved in building, not involved in actually launching the program. I'll set the strategy, tell everybody what the success would look like, let somebody else handle it internally, check up time to time, make sure everything goes on track. And yeah, it's sometimes I would set up certain metrics to make sure that we're actually moving forward. And that's all I'm going to care about.
What about career paths for your employees? How soon are you talking to them about career paths within Action Home Services once you hire them? Is this something that you talk to them about immediately, or is this something that you see potential in them? In a meeting, you'll talk to them about this is what your career could look like within Action Home Services.
We talk about it before they get hired.
Oh, awesome.
And if they don't want to improve, get better, and grow, we're not going to hire them. So if the growth is not part of their inner self, if they don't want a career, that's not going to be an option for us. So it's really hard for somebody to work in an organization which is fast-paced, growth-oriented, and them not wanting to grow. Because then we're going to outgrow the person and they're going to become like an anchor to organization. So they're actually going to end up slowing us down. So I believe we've got a great culture. It's a great company, but it's definitely not for everybody. So the pace is really fast here. So sometimes we outburn a lot of people, and if people don't want to grow, it's not going to work out.
And how often are you sitting down with employees to review how they're doing at the company and set goals even within the company? What does that look like? Is it like quarterly sit downs with each employee, bi or semi-annual? How do you go about that?
I only do it with certain people, so I don't do it with everybody in the company. And this is something where I could say that we're not doing it well. That's one of the improvements we should work on. Ideally, I would love to do it once a month. That's the perfect number. And in worst case, I would prefer to do it quarterly, where we're right now doing it probably twice a year, which is clearly not enough.
Do you have goals that you can apply to certain employees that you meet with, or do they set up the goals themselves and review them with yourself? So, for example, like a sales role, do you have certain goals that you can tell them that they can choose these goals, or do they set the goals themselves based on their performance?
It's a combination of both. So their personal goals have nothing to do with me. Their professional goals have to align with the business goals. and their financial goals will have to somehow align with their performance as well as their professional career path. So it's three things we look for: is personal, professional, and financial. And one of them somewhere has to interlink with a business. And a personal one, if somebody wants to run a marathon, or somebody wants a six pack, or somebody wants to buy a dog or buy a house, that's not something I could fully control. I could support them, guide them, and give them recommendations. But if somebody's looking to get married, I can go out and look for them for a wife or husband. Like, I just can't do that. Right. But if they want a career path, that, yeah, sure, we can figure out the steps of which they need to take to get to the next level.
Do you actually take note of their personal goals? Is that something that you talk to them about as well, so that you know where they are in their personal life?
I don't take notes. I remember them. But again, I do it on a smaller scale. So the guys I ask for, I know the answers. I can tell you top of my head. But I do it with less than 10% of the company. Right. So I think that's a correct way of doing it. Because if I would have, 30 direct reports and I'm going to be setting the goals for 30 people and being a guy for 30 people, I don't think it's going to work. So I think the perfect number, depending on size of your organization, will be between 5 to 12.
And what about employees that aren't necessarily hitting their professional goals? Do you document that? Do you help them through that? Like, what is the process in terms of, okay, this employee hasn't hit their goals at Action Home Services this quarter, this month, whatever that is. What is the process in terms of getting them back on the right track and helping them through that?
Very good question. So first is when people don't hit their own scores, and those goals are created in combination of both me and them. So they know what the number is. They always have to agree with the number. If they don't believe that the number is reasonable, in that case, it can't really be a goal. So the goals have to be achievable. And if for whatever reason they can't achieve them, I first figure out why. Is there anything I can do on my side to make sure they're going to hit the goal? And if that's, I don't believe it's me, then we can set up a plan for their personal improvement. And if they don't improve, then we'll look at the situation specifically. Is that them not performing because they just don't pay enough attention, or they don't really care? And in that case, it's usually a written warning. We rarely go through more than a couple of warnings. Very often people would quit before the third. So the moment they know they're not performing, you give them warning. Usually on a second warning, they would just leave themselves because they understand they're underperforming, and they just, we separate ways. And it's just, it is what it is. Like, we may be a great company for somebody for the first couple of years of them being in the industry. We may be great as a transition for them to their next stage. We may be a great company for somebody to retire. So not everybody is going to be perfect for us. We're not going to be perfect for everybody. So just like a marriage, right? We're looking for a perfect fit.
Hey, are you planning to attend HNA Hardscape North America, October 22nd to the 24th in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, you can use our promo code VIPHTH to get 50% off your tickets, or you can click the link in the show notes below to register for this. I've gone the past 2 years. It is awesome. A massive trade show along with the Equip Exposition with more than 1,000 exhibits, 42,000 square feet hardscape house, as well as a 30 plus acre outdoor demo yard that you can demo equipment. There's the HNA Awards ceremony. There's lots of educational sessions throughout the day, and there's more than enough events before and after the trade show itself. I've always enjoyed my time. I'll see you there. Use the code VIPHTH to get 50% off your tickets and register sooner rather than later, because tickets do increase leading up to the show. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George on multiple occasions now. I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at JoinKTC. Now back to our episode. Absolutely. John, I'm going to ask you about advertising now, and I'm going to ask you this, but please tell me if it's too much to ask. You don't have to say it, but do you know how much you spend, say, per month on advertising for Action Home Services? And do you even want to share that with us?
Sure, it's over 100,000.
Wow. Okay, because yeah, I heard it at one of the events that we went to, and how how do you track the sort of key performance indicators in knowing that you're getting a return on that ad spend and that's paying off for Action Home Services? What does that look like in terms of measuring that?
It's a CRM system which we use. We track as much as we possibly can. There's a lot of dashboards. We review the dashboards twice a week. Everything gets split up by type of campaign, types of lead source of a marketing campaign, returns in, well, it's called RA. It's a return on ad spent. So return on ad spent is very much different depending on the type of marketing you're using. So yeah, we looked at those dashboards and we review them on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, annually, adjust every time. And it's not something where you can come in. I mean, you can come in and start spending hundreds of $1,000s per month from day one if you have the budget, if you have an investor or somebody, or you're coming from the previous industry. The truth is you're going to end up burning a lot of money really fast. This point of you starting off, like you got to be careful. It's just really difficult for you to have this smooth growth going from 0 to 100 really fast. For us, it's been a constant developing path of us increasing it and adjusting. And it's not perfect. It's really far from being perfect. But as you mentioned, yeah, we just track things as much as we can.
Yeah, it goes to show how much you can really burn through a lot of money fast if you're not testing and you're not tracking those things. Do you outsource that advertising ad spend to a marketing company, or do you guys do that internally with managing your ads?
It's a combination of both. So we have a fractional chief revenue officer. We have people responsible for paid ads. We've got different people responsible for organic traffic. I typically set the entire strategy for marketing. I have quite a bit of experience by now managing this, and I could probably say I'm quite knowledgeable in it. So that's something what I would decide where and how we're going to spend it. And then, yeah, we would be just choosing different agents, consultants, or doing certain things ourselves. But it's a combination. And ideally, I would love to handle it all in-house. Typically, the people who have the capabilities are not really much interested in coming in and working in the organization as an employee. So they can just charge you more being a consultant, and we have to go with the flow. So we pay the high consulting fees.
Is there a avenue in which you've seen the best return on investment, or does it just depend based on, like, say, or sorry, return on ad spend? Is it like Google Ads? Is it your website, which just looking at your website looks like you guys have invested quite a bit into that? SEO? Is it Facebook ads, or do you just spread it out and fine tune as you go?
Your return is actually decreasing as the time goes by. So if you have a budget of $10,000, you're gonna have a higher return as the percentage in comparison as $100,000. So there's a very big difference between a return as a percentage. So if you spend $1, you wanna, call it multiply it by 5x. If you're gonna spend, and you're gonna get $5 back. If you're gonna spend $2, you may get 3x, right? So yes, you're gonna get more, but now as a percentage, you're actually getting less. And the rule of marketing is very simple. The more you spend, the smaller the return you're going to get. And it's unavoidable. You're not going to increase the return. So it's called a cliff climbing. Eventually, once you're going to hit certain amount of money you're spending, you're going to hit a cliff. And you spending any more money actually going to end up costing you more. But now if you're looking for this expansion and growth, you kind of have to do it. And that's the stage where we are. So we essentially, yeah, just spending more than I would love and not getting the return which we want for the sake of us growing.
Yeah, this has been awesome, John. I have two more questions for you,
Sure.
but many more if you'd ever want to come back on.
Yeah,
There's lots of
yeah.
different topics we didn't get to touch on, or even go deep into any of the topics that we've already talked about. But Future for Action Home Services. Do you have goals set for what Action Home Services looks like 5, 10, 20 years down the road? I met you for the first time at an event this past week and just seeing that facility and everything that they do there. But do you have goals and a vision of what you see Action Home Services becoming in the future?
Certainly. I have 3, 5, 10. I don't go beyond 10. It's just evolving so much that it's really hard. Even 10 is really blurry. It's evolving. If I were to ask myself where I would be 10 years ago, it would never be this answer. I would never think I'm going to be sitting in a pickup truck on a podcast. So, but yes, I can really, really well see where we're going to be in 3 years.
John, I asked this last question to every business owner that comes on the show, and that is one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning. This could be personal related, this could be business related, but do you have one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
Don't give up and stay humble. That's probably the big one.
Thank you so much for your time. Where can our audience go find out more about you, yourself, Action Home Services? Where can they go find out more about you?
About myself, I don't really think you can find more about myself anywhere. I don't have any personal social medias. I don't manage them. But more about our company is probably following us on social medias. Instagram would be the best one. We post a bit of stuff there. And yeah, if somebody wants to ever reach out to me, they can just email us and I'll be happy to answer. You could see me in a lot of different events for landscapers and overall business conferences. So feel free to talk to me there. I would be happy to help anybody.
You probably get a lot more done in your day, more productive for not having social media. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Mike. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I would love to do it again whenever you're going to want.
Beautiful. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If I could ask you one thing, please give us a rating, review, Spotify, Apple, wherever you can. I do see those numbers going up each week here, so I do really appreciate that, and that does help this podcast. Also, if you have any guest recommendations, topic recommendations, you can send me a message at HowToHardscape on Instagram. And before we leave you, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. PatioSEO.com. And now you know Patio SEO can take your hardscape business to the next level. James Reed and his expert team have built a reputation on success, not just for their own companies, but for hundreds of others just like yours. So don't wait. Visit patioseo.com to learn more and get started. But also be sure to follow James's journey on Instagram at Road to 100 M's. That's Road to 100 MS for behind the scenes tips and insights. And I do recommend checking that out and following along to that. Ready to build your brand? Patio SEO is here to help you every step of the way. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIPHTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And we look forward to meeting you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.